Hey guys, and welcome back to what is another Lost Bits video right here on TetraBitGaming, the series where we explore some noteworthy scrapped, unused, and unseen content in video games. So as you know, pretty much everyone on the internet right now is talking about Sonic Mania, so I was really hoping to make a video about it this week, but as those of you that follow me on Twitter know, I made the unfortunate mistake of ordering the collector's edition for the PC, so here I am, patiently waiting to play it for about another week.
I feel so close to you right now, it's a force field.
So in the meantime, I thought it'd be really cool to go back to the games that started it off for the Blue Blur at the height of the console war. The original Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive for you Brits out there, as well as the Sega Master System. As always, really quick, if at any point you do enjoy this video and would like to support the channel and see more Lost Bits like it in the future, please be sure to slap a like down below, it seriously helps me out a lot. And also let me know what other games you would like to see me do a Lost Bits on next. And with all that said, time to go fast and find some Lost Bits. Alright, to kick things off, let's have a look at the Master System port of Sonic the Hedgehog since it has less unused content overall. Now for those of you that don't know, the Master System version of the game was basically a loose, scaled down version of the Genesis game with 8-bit graphics instead of 16, different stages, and some other various differences. Now if only there was a YouTube series that compared two versions of a game. Okay, as usual, let's first listen in on some unused music and sounds. In the game's files, there exists an unused version of the Marble Zone music from the Genesis version. And seeing as how the Marble Zone isn't in the Master System version, this song strongly suggests that Marble Zone was at some point planned to be in this version, but was removed either due to time or hardware limitations. Next up are several short sound clips that were cut from the game. No one really seems to know where these were meant to be or why they were cut, but there are a few different theories. First up is what sounds to be like an unused version of the bumper sound. Then there's this weird scrapped echoing sound. And no one really knows what it could be used for, but it sounds maybe like a sound for entering a special stage or something. And next is an unused bubbling sound. This sounds like either water being drained or water rising in a stage, believed to also have been used in the Marble Zone. And lastly is a sound clip that sounds like some sort of alarm. This is believed to have been initially used in the Scrap Brain or Skybase zones. And lastly, for the Master System port, let's have a look at some of the graphics that were left unused or changed in the final version. First off, here are several minor graphics that were left out. These include random unused tile sprites, a spring, some sort of door, as well as an unused ground segment. Additionally, there are these unused labyrinth pillars which don't even have an equivalent in the Genesis version, as well as an unused animation for Neutron, found in the game's Green Hill tile set. There also appears to be an enemy that was scrapped from the final game. This Bat Brain enemy does appear in the Genesis version of the game, and although it can be found in the 8-bit port's files among other Green Hill Zone objects, it is never actually seen. Okay, time to move on to the original Sonic the Hedgehog version that most people know on the Sega Genesis. Keeping on the same topic as before, now we'll explore some unused sprites in this version. First up, let's have a look at some scrapped Sonic sprites. First is a sprite of Sonic gulping for air, as well as an animation of Sonic holding his breath. The latter was likely intended to be used when Sonic was about to drown. Next up are some unused sprites of Sonic jumping seen in early development screenshots. This was intended to be used as an animation for Sonic after completing a level. Now to me it kind of sort of looks like how Mario jumps, so that might have had something to do with why it was removed initially. But interestingly enough, a slightly altered version of this jump has made its way into Sonic Mania, with the same included purpose. Similarly, there's this scrapped sliding animation that was cut from the original Sonic the Hedgehog, but it too has found its way into Sonic Mania. Next up are some cut spin dash looking sprites that appear elongated in a certain direction. Apparently there's a call for these sprites in the game's files, but they still go unused in the final game. Lastly, there are two unused death sprites for Sonic. The first unused death sprite is a gray burnt out sprite of Sonic that was likely going to be used when Sonic would die when touching lava in the Marble Zone. The second is a set of shrinking sprites that looks like Sonic falling. It is believed that this was going to be used in a sort of bird's eye view segment, maybe if Sonic was meant to fall from the sky or fall into a hole or something. Next, let's have a look at a few unused monitors in the game. I still don't know how busting open a computer monitor can give Sonic rings or a shield, but I guess that's just video game logic. Anyways, the first unused monitor is one with Robotnik's, or Eggman's face. Now, as some of you know, these do appear in later Sonic games and they do hurt Sonic if open, so their purpose in the first game would have likely been the same. Next is a monitor with a set of goggles. This unused power-up was likely going to give Sonic either more or unlimited time underwater, which would have been awesome because if there's one thing I hate about Sonic games, it's the underwater levels.
Clutch.
Next is a monitor with static, which is believed to have been a sort of exception handler for a monitor containing invalid objects. Now, these monitors can be placed in a level with debug mode, which we will get to later, but if placed and broken, nothing really happens. And the last unused monitor is one with just an S on it. Although unused in the original game, this monitor does make an appearance in the 2013 remakes, in which it turns Sonic into Super Sonic. Next, there exists an unused sign meant to be in the Spring Yard Zone, which just reads, "Let's go." There is also an unused enemy in the Genesis version named Splats the Bunny. And seeing as how even after the release of the game, a trading card and a figurine of Splats were made, it is very likely that he was cut really close to the end of the game's development. There are several other more minor unused graphics not really worth mentioning, but I'll quickly just flash them on screen for you right here. They range from several unused tile sets to unused explosions and switches. In the game's files, an unused warping effect can also be found. When attempting to use it in the game, when Sonic runs into the warp area, he will disappear and a warp noise will play along with this effect, and then Sonic will reappear a few seconds later. It is believed to have been an early version of warping to the special stage, or simply just a way of testing it. Okay, now it's time to get to the fun stuff. There are actually 3 really short codes that you can enter in on the title screen. For the first one, by pressing C 6 times followed by up, down, left, right on the title screen, then after pressing start while holding A, B, and C on the demo screen, instead of the Sonic Team logo, a secret list of the game's developers can be seen, written in Japanese. Next, a little bit more useful, if you enter up, down, left, right, then A plus start, you can then access the stage select menu, which lets you start at any area you want, even the special stage and final zone. And finally, the most rad code of this game, by entering up C, down C, left C, right C, and A in start, you can now enter debug mode. In this debug mode, you can move Sonic and the game's camera pretty much freely, even through walls and floors. Additionally, you can cycle through various objects that appear in the level and place them wherever you see fit, basically turning the game into Sonic Maker. This was actually a ton of fun to play around with, so if you have a copy of this game, I highly recommend checking this out, as it can even lead to some pretty, interesting outcomes. Or you can beat an entire level in like 15 seconds and feel super proud of yourself. Anyways, I thought we'd use this debug mode in each level and see if we can discover something cool. First up is the most iconic Sonic stage, the Green Hill Zone. One interesting thing I was able to see was that if you try to move the camera below this section here, we can actually see that these spikes aren't attached to the ground. Normally, because the camera is so high, we assume that the spikes would be on something, so it's kind of weird to see it this way along with these moving platforms. This actually happens quite often where spikes or lava are placed over nothing. Sure, you can call it lazy, but I guess we weren't really meant to see this far below. Also, close to the first boss fight against Robotnik, far below the stage, there is a floating rock that was left over by the developers. You can even stand on it for a few seconds until the main camera tries to move back to where it should be, which kills you. Ever wanted to create an army of motobugs? Well, now you can. Another weird thing about using debug mode is that when you're in certain areas, usually towards the end of a level, sprites such as the end post or other enemies won't load properly, and instead other sprites will be called. This leads to weird looking end posts as well as bizarre enemy mutations using Robotnik sprites. Okay. Having troubles with the special stages? Not anymore, you're not. As if the special stages weren't trippy enough, you can use the debug mode to take Sonic outside of the map, and then some really strange stuff starts to happen. Sonic will fall and accelerate really quickly, and then randomly various sprites of the special stages will appear. Now what's really neat about this is that it actually reveals several other sprites that are unseen normally. This includes a marker labeling which zone the special stage was for, a 1-up icon, as well as a W marker with an unknown purpose. Sometimes I seriously wonder what kind of LSD Sonic Team was on in order to come up with this special stage aesthetic. Next up is Marble Zone. Here we can spawn random fireballs and yup, even entire fire geysers and lava flows. Logic. On that same note, in this section that you normally have to run away from the lava, behind what the camera can normally see, we can notice that the lava stream chasing you does get cut off as well, instead of actually filling up that entire area. I also found these weird robotic tiles that are only visible in debug mode, but I can't seem to figure out what they represent or why they're here. In the Marble Zone boss fight, I'm pretty sure I actually broke the game for a while, and I spawned so many enemies that Dr. Robotnik himself was culled out. In probably my favorite Sonic 1 zone, the Springyard Zone, debug mode lets you spawn bumpers wherever you want, which as you can imagine can lead to some problems. In this zone we can also move the camera way below the stage to see more of the background image and even underneath it when it gets cut off, which I thought was pretty neat. Seriously, what the? Like I said earlier, I really don't like Sonic water levels, and thankfully debug mode helps me a lot with this. In Labyrinth Zone, we can start to spawn a lot more objects and enemies like these heads that fire projectiles, a bunch of random floating spears, or even the bubbles that refill your air. I was also able to skip one of the most annoying boss fights ever, so that's pretty sweet too. Starlight Zone didn't really have anything too noteworthy that I could find, so let's move right along to Scrap Brain Zone. In this zone, you can actually place those robotic tiles that I mentioned before, and it looks like all that they are invisible blocks to stand on. However, to me this still doesn't make much sense as they can be found inside walls and such, but my guess is that they were just a last-minute measure by the developers to add collision detection to objects quickly. And just like in Labyrinth Zone, thankfully we can also skip basically all of Scrap Brain Zone's water segments in Stage 3, which brings us right up to the final zone. During this fight with Robotnik, again the debug mode gives the player an unfair advantage. Although you can't play Sonic on the top of the area, you can move the camera and see where Robotnik will pop up next before you're normally supposed to. It's also interesting to see that Robotnik will stay in the same spot until right before he teleports to another area. Additionally, right after being hit when moving off screen, Dr. Robotnik is still stuck in his damaged phase and is surrounded by a white rectangle that doesn't change until he teleports. And with that, Dr. Robotnik is defeated, or at least until the next game. And with that concludes this episode of Lost Bits, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave it a like, and if you want to see more Lost Bits, be sure to check out more of the series over at my channel, or by clicking on the card right here. And if you'd like to stay even more up to date with me and my channel, be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Links to all of those will be in the description below. And if you like this video, be sure to be on the lookout for the Sonic Mania episode, which should be out in the near future. But as always guys, thank you all so much for watching today and for all of your amazing support, and I will see you in a bit.